All right, welcome, kings and queens. Today we are talking Reesa Teesa, y'all. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I got all the way up to episode 6, part 6. I'm sorry, and many of you have been inboxing me and saying, "Queen Sheba, can you cover this?" I have a very short attention span. I had to check it out, and I am hooked. Now I got a lot of questions, Reesa Teesa. I got a lot of questions, but before I jump in, please pardon the background noise, y'all. My husband's upstairs working out, and when it comes to health, that is your wealth. So I'm just going to have to roll with it and navigate around the background noise, and hopefully, it doesn't cause too much of a distraction. But yes, we are talking Reesa. Let me say Reesa Teesa. Who the fuck did I marry? Pardon my language, but that's basically what the series is called, okay? Let's jump into this. For those of you who are just tuned in, or if you're new to the channel, welcome to the palace. I am Queen Sheba. I cover a variety of hot topics specific to reality television, but most importantly, I hone in on the psychological and the behavioral traits of the Black experience.
Subscribe now.
I'm gonna break it up in phases. So we're phases, segments. So this is segment 1, part 1 through 5. I'll probably try to cover 5 parts, but anywho, let's talk about part 1. So part 1, Reesa goes into detail, and she said that she met her ex-husband during COVID 2020. Okay. At this point, we do not know who I don't, because y'all are ahead of me in the episodes and the different details that she's sharing. So we don't know who the husband is. She kept all identities anonymous just to protect the innocent. Plus, she did not have their permission to share. So just follow me. Part 1, she tells us about how she met this guy online during COVID of 2020. Okay. Now, what happened is she said, and I'm going to give you my words, he double teamed her by himself from 2 different dating apps. So he had 2 separate dating apps that he was utilizing to meet women. Not only that, 2 separate profiles. So he had one on Facebook and he had one on a dating app called Hinge. 2 different identities, 2 different dating apps. On Facebook, on the Facebook dating app, he used his real identity. On the Hinge dating app, he used an alias with a touch of real on Hinge. First of all, I didn't even know. Okay. I didn't even know Facebook had a dating app. That's why y'all like Facebook. That's why the aunties don't want to come off Facebook. Okay, you learn something new every day. So she said up front, listen very closely, there were red flags, and she chose to ignore them. So let's not act like this man was so clever that he completely pulled wool over her eyes. She said she noticed immediately there was so many red flags, but she chose to ignore each and every one of them. You know, I was just thinking while she was talking, I said, damn, ladies, we so easily betray ourselves. Some women betray themselves just to say that they have a man. Okay? Keep in mind, he's going to destroy you anyway. You know, you end up with stories and horrible endings like this. So why betray yourself just to have a catastrophic ending? I don't understand. But let me get back to it. I will say this though. Loneliness will cause you to do some of the most destructive things and engage in some of the most destructive behaviors. And that was my thought process as she was sharing her story. I'm like, oh, you could have run. You could have run, but you didn't. And that's fine. So that's a little bit of background. So she said they talked. They ended up talking on the phone. They exchanged phone numbers, ended up having a first phone call. And he wooed her with his troubles, his trials, his tribulations, and his hardships. Because I'm going to say this. If I would have had a conversation with a man and we met on a dating app, and we have yet to go out, and you tell me all about your troubles, your hardships, your heartaches, what you've gone through, who broke your heart, what your mama didn't do, what your daddy did, what you wish your grandma would have said, could have said, should have said, your brother, your sister, your auntie, your auntie, I'm not talking to you again. That's too damn much. But because most of us as a community, as a whole, Black folks tend to fall for a good old traumatic story. I call it a trauma dump, okay? where people come with their trauma and they dump on you. And some of us are entertained by that. But that can be very heavy. And if I'm just saying, that's a red flag to me. But because we're emotional people and we're often ruled by our emotions, argue with me, debate with me, prove me wrong. Okay? Because we do. We're often ruled by our emotions. But if you meet me, this is my thought, right? As I'm listening to her, don't start telling me your problems. I think it's inappropriate. Okay? Because I have no emotional investment, nor have I made any emotional deposits on your behalf in your life. So I don't deserve to know your dark secrets upon meeting you. The first time meeting you, the first time I'm talking to you on the phone, you gonna tell me everything? Mm-mm. Save some for yourself. Save some for yourself, please. And I believe, this is just me, this is just my opinion. I believe that people who tend on the first, I'm not talking about later on. I feel like people who come out the gates, who tend to lead with pain, often do so for attention. That's just my opinion. Your first time meeting somebody, you just gonna trauma dump on them. Either you looking for attention, in my opinion, or you're looking to manipulate somebody and or the situation. All right. So he did all that. She said he talked more than her, and she was shocked because she's never really been with a man or dated a man that actually talked more than a woman. That should have been girl. But you know what? I'm not going to say nothing because she did say she ignored every red flag. So they end up coordinating a date and they decided that they were going to go to the Cheesecake Factory. Now, I know there's been a lot of hoopla around the Cheesecake Factory. Let me ask you again. It's a silly question. You've heard it before, but would you go to the Cheesecake Factory on your first date? Yes, no. And then why? Whatever your answer is. So they decided they're going to the cheesecake, honey. And they're going to meet there, which I think was a safe idea. They're going to actually meet at the restaurant because they live 45 minutes apart. On her, so she's very excited. She calls her friends. Girl, I got a date. Girl, this girl. Oh, so she probably had not had a date in quite some time. We're going into COVID. This is where the city is. This is like right where country, like cities and states and countries are anticipating a shutdown, and they probably had not made a final decision. So she trying to get in where she fit in. So she calling her friends and be like, girl, bitch, I got a date. We finna go to the cheesecake. And I can probably imagine her friends are like, girl, for real, who is he? Girl, I met him on Facebook. Girl, I told you it was some good ones out there or some good ones out here. But anyhow, they coordinate the date. They gonna go to the cheesecake. On her way to the restaurant, y'all, she has a blowout. Her tire completely blew out. Okay. Now, she said she calls him and tells him what happened. He comes to meet her on site at her location. He takes her to the tire shop and he pays for the tire. She's completely sold. She's completely smitten because he is rolling out the red carpet, being a complete gentleman. By this time, her nose is wide open because, like Faith Evans, she said, I never knew there was a love like this before. So listen, the girl is sold. She said the date goes well. On a date, they share what they're looking for. He leans in real heavy and he says exactly what she wants to hear. He's looking for marriage. And both of them on that date established that they want to be married, that they're both looking for long-term relationships. And according to her, he said he wants what his parents have or had. And his parents, I think, were married for like 40 plus years. That's part one. Let's move on to part two. All right, so let's move on to part two. So part one ends, she shifts into part two, and she says they're talking and they're getting to know each other. Okay, now let me back up. They met in March of 2020. March of 2020. I think it's very important for me to establish a timeline just like she did so that y'all can really see how quickly this thing moved along. So in part two, they're talking, they're getting to know each other. He's sharing his reels of success. Like he's highlighting himself. He's calling out clips, stats. He's giving her the best that he got when it comes to who he is and the picture that he wants to paint of himself as a man. So he talks that he played arena football, he worked at Apple, he won an arena football championship, and that he brought up that he talked about his ex-wife, but she did give a disclaimer that the only reason he talked about his ex-wife is because she asked. Okay. Then she said she also shared some details about her ex. So they're in the thick of COVID in March. She said that the governor shuts down the city of Georgia or Atlanta. She's in Georgia. Okay, some part of Georgia, So I'm just going to say Atlanta, child, the Atlanta area, maybe on the outskirts. So the governor goes ahead and shuts down the city. So they ain't got nothing but time now. They ain't got to leave. She got her place. He got his place. And mind you, when she opened up part one, she said he was a transplant, that he had just migrated or he just moved to Georgia from California. And he gave this big sob story about why. And he was there. It don't matter. Go back and do the research. But basically, he was there because he transferred there for a job. He was looking for a place. So during this COVID shutdown, she said he lived in a studio, and then she had it. She had her place. So he and her were going back and forth and trying to decide where they wanted to. What they have us do? Where they wanted to. My brain went blank. Y'all. When they shut COVID down and everybody was trying to what? Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I forgot. Where they wanted to stay inside together. Yeah, quarantine. Thank you. So I finally figured out the word. My husband had to help me. They were going back and forth and having a deep discussion around where they wanted to quarantine, his place or her place. So they even managed to get another date in, right? During all of this at Red Lobster. Now, by this time, she's really smitten because he appears to be consistent. But I want to point out something. Notice how he's keeping her within a particular range when it comes to those restaurants. But anywho, honey, if she likes it, I love it. Now lean in because this is where it starts to get good. Now we can start to thaw out a bit, okay? She starts to get into the thick of things because they begin the discussion about where they should quarantine. Now, keep in mind, it's only been 2.5 weeks of dating. They've only gone out 2 times. They've talked on the phone a lot. And now they're talking about, are we going to quarantine at your house or my house? Maybe the times have changed and I'm old school. But are you ladies, are y'all all that comfortable being locked down with a man that you don't know? A stranger that you just met on the internet? I know everybody is different. But what's the consensus in the chat? I want y'all to talk it out. You just met a man on the internet. It's been 2 weeks. Y'all really finna quarantine in your house or his until they open the city back up? Like, am I just kind of old school or is that the new thing? Where you just it is what it is, girl. We just gonna do everything. I don't know. I'm asking. Okay. So she decides, you know what? My home is bigger. Why don't we quarantine in my home, in her place? Okay. So he gave her a heads up. Keep in mind, a disclaimer, red flag, that his housing situation was temporary. She did admit that by making the choice to have him in her home, that may have caused her to become a target or get a target on her back. She did admit that in her details, right? Because the previous weeks, well, probably hell the week before, because they only dated 2 weeks before all of this happened. So the week before, she said that she had invited him to her house. So he probably was like, oh, this is nice. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Oh, this real nice. I can see myself being a hobosexual over here. So it was an easy decision. Now, Reesa Teesa, I'm pretty sharp. Now, this is where I feel like you didn't give us all of the detail because you started off using the word quarantine and then you said, so he moved in with me. We moved all of his stuff in my house. Girl, was it a quarantine or was it a full full on moving special. Everybody's different. But I needs to know. Did you clean it up because you didn't want to look back? Because so far she seems to be on the up and up. But I just want to know, did you really move that man in your house after knowing him 2 weeks? Because you said quarantine, but later on, as you start to get into the story, you said he moved in. And then you backdoored it. And she said she admitted that having him in her home may have caused her to become, no. No, you know what? That's not what I already said that. I know what she said. She said that moving him in her home, she went against everything that she knew to be true in her conscious mind. Number one, being a Christian woman. And she should have stuck to her guns, but she defied every logical, what is it? Every logic, every ounce of reasoning, because she wanted that man. Okay? She wanted that man. And I said it earlier, loneliness will have you betraying yourself if you're not careful. She faced an internal struggle, she said, but because she wanted him, she moved forward against her beliefs. Part 2 quickly went from a quarantine situation, like I told y'all, to a full-blown move-in special. But woo, let me say this. As a Black woman, she shared, and her words were, it was intoxicating to not have to pay the bills because when he moved in, he took care of the household expenses. And she did say that it was so invigorating and intoxicating because she was living check to check. Ladies, let me back up. It should be intoxicating when you're with a man. It should be the best thing since sliced bread. Anything other than that, you may be settling. And I'm not talking about a fantasy world. I'm not talking about living above your means, but that's what a man brings to your life if he's not a scammer. Okay. She moved way too quick. But it's also important, in my opinion, for you ladies and us women to be established as well so that we don't make dumb, idiotic decisions like that of moving a man in your house from the internet that had 2 separate profiles after only 2 weeks of knowing him. Now, come on, get your money right, get your business in order so that you are able to take care of yourself and enjoy the courting process without being desperate. Okay, let's move on if y'all are ready and continue to part 3. All right, part 3. Reesa picks up the story with the two of them on a wild roller coaster ride. I'm talking about him sweeping you off your feet, and now they're living together and they're talking about purchasing a home together and building their lives happily ever after. Harlequin romance, all of those beautiful things that just make you lose your breath. So he shows her a pre-approval letter in the sum of $700K. Now she shared that hey, listen, this new to me. I ain't even finna act like this is my lifestyle because, honey, I'm living check to check. So this was like, but it also caused her to pause because she said she told him, wait a minute, I can't afford a $700,000 house note. Can you? And he said, girl, what you talking about? Baby, I got money offshore. That's what I came here for. Let me handle this. He didn't say it like that, but I'm being funny. Let me handle this. Now, if you think about a $700,000 house note, y'all, that's probably, I'm going to say about 25% of that will go towards a mortgage. Hold on. Let me see if I can do the math really, really quick. 700,000 minus 25% over the course of a year. 25%. Let's just say he bought a home for $700,000, right? Minus 25%. I don't even know what that's going to be. You know what? Don't give me the line. I'm not going to even try. But anywho, he got approved for a lot of money. She was excited, but at the same time, a little hesitant because it's like, you sure you got it? He said, I got it. I got it. She's like, all right, because don't be looking at me because you already know my situation. Okay. And the approval letter that he showed her was allegedly from Chase Bank. So he reassures us that he reassured her that he got it like that. Okay. Now that I know what this man looked like, Reesa, now, girl, because now his identity has been revealed and I'm jumping ahead of myself. But girl, you should have known better. But anywho, let me get back. So now she's smitten because she's imagining what her life is going to be like. Okay. They get a realtor, and from the introduction of the way she's talking about the realtor, it sounds like the realtor tried to warn her well before this thing got ugly. But you know what? What I say, loneliness, desperation can make you do some foolish things. And guess what? You never get between a dog and his bone, because she didn't listen, because she had her eyes locked on that man. And because that lady wanted that man, she was not trying to listen to anything else. Okay, let's run through a timestamp. They met in March of 2020. 2 weeks after meeting, they move in. A month after meeting, they're looking for their forever home. Let me emphasize, virtually. Because now he done told her, baby, we can't go look, but why don't you just look online? Pick out some stuff you like online. So they select a home in the range of about 400K. The realtor calls her back to ask for proof of funds. So now shit is getting serious. They want to know. Them people want to know if you got that money. You got that money? Okay. Now the boyfriend, soon to be the husband, says, listen, girl, I'm the man that you've always looked for. I got everything taken care of. Okay. I've already taken care of everything with the realtor. You just sit back, relax, and enjoy this flight. She's like, okay, damn, this feels good. A few days later, the realtor calls her to follow up to see, listen, you got that money? Are y'all serious about purchasing this home? Because it's been days and I need that money. I need proof of funds. So she's confused. She said, wait, hold on. She says, he's already put in an offer. And he said, when? Who? What? Where? Because the realtor's like, put in an offer. Okay, when? And that's when she gets a piece of that old narc coming through. She calls her boyfriend and says, listen, the realtor just called me. He's needing an update. He's saying that he's waiting on proof of funds. Are we so serious about the house? And he loses his shit because how dare he goes into a rage because he did not like the realtor calling her and updating her. Okay. And then he goes on to reveal to her to say, you know what? I backdoored him anyway. I'm not working with him. I'm working with my friend who's a realtor. So my friend can receive the commission. Niggas. Let's go to part 4. All right, part 4. At this point, about a month in, she starts to notice that he's inconsistent with his stories, his follow-ups, and something just seems off. Girl, you should have ran. But anyhow, so due to his inconsistency, she starts like this audio diary of just her sharing her thoughts about his lies. Ma'am, by this point, you should have broke up, sent him back to his studio, his duplex, whatever it was, and just say, you know what? It's just not working. But because what I say earlier, loneliness, desperation will make you do some foolish shit when it comes to love. So now we're in May. Timeline. 2 months post dating, since they've gone on the first date, since they've met, all of that. And they are moving fast, honey, like a runaway train. Okay. He's still telling her they're going to move in this house. They're waiting on they were supposed to have the inspection 2 weeks ago. No inspection has been completed on the home. And now, hold on, she finds out that she's pregnant. Y'all, listen, she finds out that she's pregnant. Keep in mind, she's really now struggling and she's embarrassed because she's She's a self-proclaimed Christian girl and knows better. Number 2, she's moved in a strange man that she met online and discovered that he has 2 separate dating profiles on 2 separate dating platforms. And number 3, she's lying to her family. Child, because she know, girl, you knew that man was a hot mess. But look, she's lying to her family. So at this point, her family them don't even know that man is living in her house. So I'm just giving y'all a little bit of background. And now you're keeping an audio diary of his inconsistency. And now you have a baby on the way. This is when the clock starts ticking, like the first 48. Let's go on to part number 5. Part 5. His continuation of lies. Y'all, the math ain't mathing. So basically, she's saying he is a liar. Like he's just lying. But he got an answer for everything. So the continuation of lies, they're just not adding up. So she starts to take things into her own hands. Look, bro, we were supposed to move into this house. You said you put an offer in. The realtor we were working with, so you didn't put an offer in. Then you came back and said, you know what? I ain't working with him anyway. My homeboy, me and my homeboy gonna do the work for me. He's making the offer so he can get the commission. Now you got a story about the inspection and how everything's backlogged because of COVID. And the man was supposed to come. Now he got sick. Just a cluster F, pretty much. Okay. So she takes things into her own hands. And she said the Holy Spirit told her to log on to realtor.com. And she saw that the house was no longer for sale. And it said off market. But because her lack of experience and her ignorance, and that's not a bad thing. Ignorance is not a negative word. It's like none knowing. So I don't want y'all to be like, you said ignorance. It's real. That's the formal word when we don't know something. My ignorance. Because of my ignorance, I did not know. Okay. Her ignorance and her lack of experience with real estate, she really didn't know what it truly meant for a home to be off the market. So she located the information of the seller. She calls up the seller's realtor, and she played the part. Y'all know we know what to do when we need to do it. She played the part. Hey, listen, my husband and I were looking at this house, even though they were not married or not. And I see that it's off the market. Oh my gosh, did it really sell? And the realtor says, yeah, we closed on that house yesterday. She said, yesterday? She goes, yeah. And I think she may have asked the lady, was it a African-American couple that bought the house, right? A younger couple or a man? And the lady said, oh no, but honey, is this Reesa Teesa? You know y'all ain't got that kind of money. No, I'm just kidding. That ain't what the realtor said. The realtor said, no, it was actually bought by an older white couple. And she said, okay. So she gets off the phone with the lady. And she said, you know what? I knew he was going to come up with a lie. And you still ain't ran, girl. But anywho, she says she knew he was going to come up with a lie and have a reason or an answer, an excuse for why the house sold. But to make things worse, she said she needed to give him room to get out of his lie. That she had come to the conclusion that it was important for her to allow him to have a way out of the lie. So she waited 24 hours after finding out the truth. And then she asked him when he got home about the house. He came up with an elaborate story about the interest rate and something about that being messed up. And then she takes it upon herself to play Captain Save a Hoe and looks at him and she says, you know what? If it's not too much trouble, just let it be. And let's just focus our efforts elsewhere. Let's just look for a different house. Okay, baby? Don't worry about that house. Now, Reesa Teesa, child, listen, this too much. And to top it off, she suffered a miscarriage, y'all, during this time. This concludes my recap and my review of Reesa Teesa's Who the Fuck Did I Marry? Parts 1 through 5. But Reesa, I'm going to keep it real before I close it up. You should have been gone. You should have been ran. You should have been gone. You should have slammed the door and you should have run as fast as you could.